Every nation on earth will adore you. The church, the visible presence of Christ. Christ is the head, the church the body. Remember, friends, we don't live in the world and go to church. We live in the church and go to the world. And thus, this particular feast of Epiphany, I love that question. What do you do when the star that you are following leads you to a stable? You see, we're all following someone or something. Like, what is it that gives our life, our marriage, our family? What is it that just is the North Star? That regardless, that's what's happening in the circumstances of life, we continue to stay in relationship and seeking the truth. And for me, this question about the stable, remember Jesus, the newborn king. One would clearly expect a king, a newborn king, to be born in a palace where there would be servants, where there would be towels, where there would be warmth, where there would be comfort and comfy cozies. But he's born in a stable. And stables smell. And they're cold. And they're dark. And one would never expect the newborn king to be born in a stable. Now, I'm confident each one of us here this day, and those of you with us online, we can find ourselves in a place of the stable. Those situations or circumstances or hardships of life we would never choose. Perhaps it's relationship struggles. Perhaps it's health. Perhaps it's the death of a loved one. Perhaps it's the emptiness in our heart. And so that question of the stable, and the acronym for us is STAR. Right? Like, what do you do when the star you're following leads you to a stable? The S is for the stable. The T, that's tabernacle or temple. Tabernacle, the presence of God is with us. The temple was the dwelling place, where the meeting place between heaven and earth. When you're in the stable, friends, expect God to show up. And what's our response? The A is the A+. You give the best of your patience, the best of your compassion, the best of your mercy, the best of your forgiveness, the best of your generosity, the best of your just patient, just willingness to trust God's going to show up here. And then the R, it's always about recalculate. Like we have to go home by another way. Like we've been off track. And that GPS just kind of recalculates us and puts us in the right spot. So if the church, if you and I can embrace the stable of our lives with that disposition of faith, Lord, every nation on earth will adore you. We have an active role. And it begins in the stable of giving witness. And the other gift for us, so Pope Francis, just a few days after Christmas, wrote this letter reflecting on St. Francis de Sales. It's the 400th anniversary of his death. St. Francis de Sales is just a spiritual legend. If you're looking for a great classic, Introduction to the Devout Life. I remember the first time I heard something about St. Francis, it was along these lines. He dug his own grave, and every night he went out and stood at his grave and said his night prayer. What? Who thinks like that? Who is this guy? And he has this little teaching that he refers to as the school of the incarnation. So like if we're students and we want to peer into the Christmas feast, what can we learn? St. Francis writes, do you see the baby Jesus in the crib? He accepts all the discomforts of that season, the bitter cold, and everything that the Father lets happen to him. That's a key word right there. All the discomforts and everything that the Father lets happen to him. Can you and I enter into that place of the discomforts? And these discomforts are what the Father lets happen to us. And then he continues. He does not refuse the small consolation that his mother gives him. We're not even told that he ever reached out for his mother's breast, but left everything to her care and concern. Again, the disciple, the one who wants to grow in holiness, the one who wants to enter into the stable, leaves everything to the Lord's care and concern. And then the last piece. So too, we ourselves should neither desire nor refuse anything, but accept all that God sends us, the bitter cold and the discomforts of the season. That's a spiritual lesson for us from St. Francis de Sales. Again, we cry out from our desires, our hurts, our pains, our wishes, absolutely. But simultaneously, we accept all that God sends us. And perhaps it's simply Jesus' prayer the night before he died, right? He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. He knows death is real close. And how does he pray? My Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want. Rise up in splendor, St. Dennis. Rise up in splendor, Randy. Put your name there. Lord, every nation on earth will adore you. It's essential to ask ourselves that question. What do you do when the star you're following leads you to a stable? And can we expect God to show up, give our best, and allow ourselves to be changed?